tribunal for the Diocese of Sioux Falls, and that means I work with divorcees, people who are divorced. One of the big issues for them is, what is all this fuss about getting married in the Catholic Church and being married for the rest of your life, and really the annulment process. One of the questions then that comes up is, why get married? What's in it for me? The research is showing that over half the people in the United States don't get married anymore. They just live together for a while or for as long as they feel like it, and marriage is not an institution in which they're involved. So let's talk a little bit about marriage and what is in it for me. Marriage fills a number of needs that we have, and the very first and simplest one is we're social people. We want to belong to someone. We want someone to belong to us. We want to be somebody's beloved, somebody who cares about us and someone for whom we can care. And as an institution, marriage provides an answer to that strong need that we have. On another plane, the state is interested in marriage. Good marriages make good family life. Good families make a good, strong, stable society where people can live peacefully, harmoniously, fulfill their needs, and be happy and meaningful as persons and families. So marriage is an institution that the state is very interested in, so the state is involved in people's marriages. Then on the other hand, the wonderful part is that we're people of faith. And marriage is an institution, believe it or not, through which men and women can literally experience God's love made present, made active, made alive right now in their lives. Now, I want to talk a little bit about those things. I often say to people in my office, when a couple gets married, they get married in two worlds as it is. On the one hand, they get married in the eyes of the state. To do that, they go down to the auditor's office, county auditor's office, and they get a license which allows them to get married. Just like you have a license to drive your car, you get a license that allows you to get married. The qualifications for that is you need to be of age, legal age in the state, and you need to be single. Then you have a license to get married. So then you go to whatever place you're going to go through the ritual in which you will be married. You there sign a contract that's recognized in civil law. So John signs a contract with Mary, and Mary signs a contract with John, and now they're married. And the first two people in their wedding party will sign that as the official witnesses for the state. Then that contract is registered in the state of South Dakota. Then in the eyes of the state, this couple belongs to the group of married in the state, and they no longer belong to the group of single in the state. Now, an interesting sideline of that I want to mention is that legitimacy of children is determined by that contract. Legitimacy of children is not a church issue or a religious issue. It's a state issue, state government issue. And the reason for that is pretty simple. The state wants to know who's responsible for children, who's going to see that they're appropriately brought up and nourished and educated and formed for their life. That's a right that children have, so the state is interested in children being legitimate, that is, they belong to married couples. When I mention legitimacy of children, I'm really referring to how the state might look upon children as being born within a family. That's a concern of theirs, that they are conceived and or born within the marriage situation. So then they belong to this family, and that's a huge value in the eyes of the state. Now let's move on to the church. In the church, the marriage ritual is quite different than it would be in a civil marriage like before justice of the peace. In the church, whatever faith we belong to, the married couple, each party of that couple, makes a very sacred promise before God and before the whole community gathered. And that community gathered is important because they are affirming and supporting and welcoming this couple into the married community. So they make a very sacred promise, and that promise is very serious. It would usually go something like this. I, John, will take you, Mary, to have and to hold from this day forward. Now, to have and to hold doesn't mean I own you, you're my possession, now you're mine, and I can control you, and I can make your life the way I want it, shape it the way I want it to be. That's not what it means. To have and to hold means to love and to care for, to nurture, to help you become all that you can be, sometimes which might even be corrective, but it's to have and to hold as a person. So let's do that again. I, John, take you, Mary, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, and there are worse days in all of our lives. Some days we're not very lovable. I take you to have and to hold, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness or in health, and until death. So, I often say to people, why would anybody want to make a statement like this? It's almost crazy, because you don't know what's going to happen to you in your life. What's going to happen to John and Mary 30 years from now, 50 years from now? So they're promising to take each other for whatever the conditions are for the rest of their life. Crazy? Yes, but it has meaning. It has wonderful meaning. Now, the way that life is lived out is not going to be perfect every day, but basically, John makes a gift of his life to Mary because he loves her. He orders his life literally to her good. That's the opposite of being selfish. He literally orders his life to the good of his wife. Mary, on the other hand, accepts that gift, and then she makes the same gift to John. She orders her life to his good. The whole life, not just a little piece here and a little piece there, but John becomes the most important piece in Mary's life, in front of her career, her own family even. You know, you leave brothers and sisters and mother and father, and you cling to your spouse. This is what it means. So the whole life is ordered to the good of each other. Now, that demands fidelity. This couple is in love with each other in a kind of committed love in which there's no room for anybody else. Married love has boundaries around it. I often say to people, you build a fence around your marriage, and you be careful that you don't sneak under the fence, and you don't crawl over the top, and you don't crawl between the boards. You know, you don't do little things that say to the neighbors, I'm available, because you're not. Your marriage is sealed with this spouse for the rest of your life, and so you need to maintain the fence. That's called fidelity. Another property of marriage, which we've already alluded to, is permanence. This is for the rest of your life. And you know, when you think about it, that's pretty simple. If you're going to make a total gift, it's total. Total not just in today, but total, which means till death. Now, another thing that people don't often think about in marriage is, obviously, when you make this deep, deep, long-lasting vow, you must have tremendous love for this person. Love is sacrificial, and it's also life-giving. I think we all could think of examples when someone loved us enough to make us grow. Love tends to inspire us. It brings out the best in us. We grow because we're loved. When we're hated, we usually don't grow. We get defensive and tighten up, and we fight, we resist. But in love, we grow. So love is fruitful. It's life-giving. I think of it as being generative. Generative is individuals. Love helps me to grow. It helps you to grow. But love also in a marriage then takes life in children. Think about what a tremendous design this is in the plan of God. That life is, or marriage is not only life-giving, love is not only life-giving for John and Mary, it actually becomes a new creation in their children. And then in that sense, their love lives forever. It will never die, because their children are the living icon of the love they have for each other. Now, what a beautiful thing that is. And what a difficult thing it is on some days, because, as I said before, we're not always lovable. Some days we get up and we're not lovable at all. But love has all those qualities that Jesus has. In the beginning of this little talk, I said that marriage is kind of I think of it as an insight into, or a chance to get a little bit of a handle on the love Jesus Christ has for us. How do we encounter the love that Jesus has? You see it in marriage. I know wonderful husbands and wives, and in their lives, a husband gets a little glimpse of the persona of God because of the way his wife is to him, her daily being there for him, even when he's not lovable, her daily forgiveness of him when he does something wrong or he's not as much as she wants him to be, because we don't always do what people want us to do. So for a husband, he can have a little experience of God in his wife. She can have a little experience of God in her husband. Now, it wouldn't be complete to talk about marriage without just saying a word or two about sex. Sex is the deepest communication of that committed love, Sex is not a plaything for our pleasure or our experimentation. Sex belongs to marriage because sex is the deepest communication of that committed love a husband has for his wife and his wife has for him. That means that sex belongs nowhere but in marriage. And of course, in God's design, sex is the element that makes marriage fruitful. So what a wonderful gift marriage is to the church. I often say to people straight away, I think the Eucharist is God's greatest gift to us because we personally there encounter Jesus, real, in the here and now. Next to that, it's marriage because of that experience of love and care that wives and husbands have for each other. So thank God for marriages. I think they're wonderful.